Kevin Spacey thinks he's back, and the WHO adopts the pandemic treaty in the middle of the night without a vote. Let's get right into it. This is Live with the Guy. I'm Guy, and we're live. Why don't you say hi, Nat?
Hello. So we're only going to go for about 25 minutes because of our regular time, we're going to have to be somewhere today.
Yeah, that's my producer, Nat. She's saying hi. Like she said, we got about 20 to 30 minutes today. I got to go to the doctor for my back. It's the reason I do YouTube now, because I can't have a real job, I guess. Okay, let's...
It's a real job if we take it as a job.
It's a real job. It's just all my previous jobs are all physical, so it's something completely different. Okay, let's go into Kevin Spacey here. Why don't you bring up this article?
So, emotional Kevin Spacey speaks out at Cannes about blacklisting and getting an award. It's very nice to be back.
Yeah, and Kevin Spacey thinks that he's back because he got an award. Is he? Is he not? He's really walking a tightrope right now. He was previously canceled, and in my opinion, justifiably canceled. Now, I didn't like the era of cancellations, and I do think people should be redeemed, but Kevin Spacey was one of the worst. So what's your opinions on this one, Nat?
I mean, I don't love what he did, and I do think he was a good actor, but it's up to the public if they want to forgive him or not.
Yeah, and I think we had an article on Kevin Spacey the other day, and what I said is this is a great opportunity for him to come back as a villain. If studios cast him as a villain, he's going to fit right in there, even with backlash. He's already getting hatred for being a villain in a movie. He was a really good actor, so if anybody could make a comeback, it's definitely him. And he also has the LGBTQ thing going for him that he can use it kind of as a shield, especially if he shifts towards moderate or right. I think they'll be accepting of him. Okay, let's go into the next thing real quick here. And that was the actor that played Norm on Cheers passed away at 76. And the reason I brought this story up, it's a little bit of a fringe story, but Cheers was kind of from my era, maybe even a little bit before. But I wanted to talk about the social dynamic of bars and things like that. But let's see what happened to Greg here.
So George Wendt, an actor and comedian who was beloved for his performance as Norm Peterson on the long-running comedy series Cheers, has passed away, his family announced.
Yeah, let's read a little bit of the article to see why he
was 76. George was a doting family man. Doesn't really say.
Yeah, he was nominated for 6 Emmys, so he was a pretty, awarded actor. So he was good in his field. He was one of my favorite characters on that show, him and Woody. But that being said, I wanted to kind of talk about the social dynamics we have nowadays. We don't have places that we really socialize like how bars used to be. Even bars today, they still supply that social hub in countries outside of Canada and the U.S., but Canada and the U.S., it's really becoming very corporate, things like this. In Mexico, bars are very social places still, and it's a place to gather for community. I guess church would supply that same kind of community feel, but just without alcohol, which is probably a bit better. The problem with that is in a lot of Western countries, churches have been rejected en masse. So it would be nice to see something like a bar, something like a church, but without alcohol and maybe without the necessary religious context, so it can kind of appeal to everybody. It is nice that we still have churches and I guess bars as well. Even though I don't drink and I haven't drank for a considerable amount of time, I worked in bars for a large portion of my life for my night job. I always had a couple of jobs, but at night I would work as a bouncer, as security at bars. And even after I stopped drinking, I used to like to go to my workplace during the day, get some food, things like that, and talk to all the regulars that were at the bar in the daytime. It's just a good social atmosphere, especially if you do sit at the bar and not by yourself at a table, isolating yourself. A good bartender will bring everybody that's kind of at the bar into a conversation, and it can give you a real sense of community and things like that. Do you have anything to say about this?
I do think that third places, as they're called, are necessary. Same with teenagers and malls. Those have also disappeared. And I think we've allowed the digital overtake too much. And with AI, we're going to do it even more.
Yeah, that is a really good point. These third places, as you put it, I've never heard it called that, but I guess that's a good definition. It's really been taken over by these online spaces. And are these real? Are these not? Are the people that are in these spaces actually real, or are they artificial? Is it an artificial intelligence behind the words? Why do I say this? Because Mark Zuckerberg is talking about flooding his platform with artificial intelligence fake entities to kind of boost interaction and things like this. Okay, let's move into, I guess we'll do that story before we do the headline story, and that's Lilo and Stitch. We recently reviewed Mission Impossible. We've talked a lot about Mission Impossible. It was a completely unpopular video. People weren't too much into Mission Impossible, I guess. It really hasn't released yet. We did see a pre-showing, so maybe that could be it. But Lilo and Stitch is the next movie we're kind of focusing in on. We're going to go watch it later this week, the day before it has its wider release. It actually looks like a very good movie, and I know we rag on Disney a lot, but this could be an actual shining moment in a era of darkness for Disney. Hopefully this could turn it around for them. It looks very good. It looks funny. It looks like it appeals to a mainstream audience. They checked the boxes with DEI, but they were able to do it in a way where the script facilitated for it because it takes place in Hawaii.
Yes, apparently it will engage the kids and exhaust the parents, but at least they're centering this review for kids.
And I believe Film Threat had seen the movie already, and they gave it their stamp of approval. They said it was really good. That being said, Film Threat is one of the best movie site reviewers online, I would say. They have a website as well as a YouTube channel. I trust their opinion very much. So I'm pretty excited about seeing this. I understand it's a kids movie. Kids movies won't necessarily maybe keep me engaged for the whole thing, but the main character, Stitch, is very cute, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. If I had to bet, I would say that I would like Lilo and Stitch more than I liked Mission Impossible. I didn't like Mission Impossible so much. It was just a solid action movie, but it didn't have that special something to it. Nat, on the other hand, really did like the movie. You can watch her review. It's in the video section of our Espanol channel. That's Nat and the Guy in Espanol. Okay, let's get into our headline story, and we're 15 minutes in, so we got about 15 more minutes before I have to have a hard out here. Okay, why don't you read the notes that I took here? Do you have them?
Yes. So apparently the WHO pandemic agreement was adopted by consensus at the World Health Assembly on May 2025, with no countries voting against it. However, 11 countries abstained from the vote: Poland, Israel, Italy, Russia, Slovakia, Iran, Algeria, Hungary, the Czech Republic, Argentina, and Egypt. The United States did not participate, having withdrawn from the agreement process earlier. While the agreement has been adopted, it is not yet open for signatures pending the adoption of an annex on pathogen access and benefit sharing, expected by mid-2026. Countries are not obliged to sign or ratify it, and the treaty will enter into force after 60 countries have ratified it.
And so, yeah, they've entered this in the middle of the night, so nobody voted against it because a lot of countries probably didn't know what was going on. Other countries abstained from the vote previous to the vote actually taking place. RFK came out with a full-on speech saying that we should not support the WHO and other countries should do the same. This was something that's really going to take away country sovereignty if they sign on to it. They want to not have any accountability for the actual people that are governing the country and give that sovereignty away to the WHO. And the WHO is trying to lure them in with monetary benefits. That being said, the USAID has pulled funding from the WHO, and we've reported in the past few weeks the WHO is on the verge of financial collapse. So the fact that no countries have actually completely signed on to the agreement, and that's kind of the next stage. They're going to start pressuring 60 countries to sign on so they can ratify this, is a good sign. Still, you see these globalists really hanging on with these global organizations like the WHO, like the World Economic Forum. So I could definitely see them trying to pressure at least 60 countries so they can ratify this into force actually happening. If they're able to do that, and then we magically see a pandemic pop up where they have the magic cure, that would be very concerning because a lot of more countries would sign on. And how often do we actually see a global pandemic or something like that? It's very rare. We've seen one recently. The one before that was more than 50 years before that. So this is something we're definitely keeping an eye on. I'm going to replay the speech from RFK that we had on tonight's episode of Nat and the Guy right back here at 9:15 Central Time. We had a little bit of audio issues last night. I didn't realize my mic was off at the until the end of the show. So we may redo some of the stories that I had from last night because some of them were very important. Okay, let's go into Eric Smith just demolished Jennifer Daskal. And this is our first clip of the day.
So apparently Eric Schmidt just demolished Jennifer Daskal, who was on Biden's Disinformation Governance Board and is now attempting to rewrite history.
And we'll just risk it. So just play the whole thing once we start going here. But I did want to say this disinformation, the board, the Ministry of Disinformation or whatever it was called, let's not forget that this was brought in the jibby jab era. And people completely forget how the government not only overstepped its bounds, but really was trying to set things up for the future to bring really tyrannical and authoritarian law and really crush freedom of speech. The chilling effect the Biden administration put on freedom of speech was pretty crazy. And this disinformation board at the time, I believe it's been disassembled now, but was pretty freaky for the United States, who actually has freedom of speech in their constitution, trying to go after freedom of speech through private industries like YouTube, Rumble, different platforms like that, and X or Twitter at the time. Okay,
did you have a role in picking Nina Jankowicz to be the executive director of the Disinformation Governance Board?
I was not the hiring authority.
Did you have input before she became Mary Poppins? Were you aware that she was going to become the executive director of the Disinformation Governance Board?
I was aware, yes.
Okay. On January 31st, 2022, you authored a memo to Secretary Mayorkas asking him to sign off on the charter that you authored. In that charter, there's a few things that you were trying to address, to dispel as relates to misinformation or disinformation relating to the origins and effects of COVID-19. Is your position that it would have been appropriate for the government to work with social media companies to censor points of view that maybe COVID-19 originated in China?
Senator, it's my view that it's not appropriate for the government to censor any points of view.
Literally, you were a part of the Disinformation Governance Board of the United States of America. My contention is the Orwellian name of Ministry of Truth was already taken, so the Disinformation Governance Board slid right in, and you were a big part of this. I mean, you wrote the charter. And so I find it kind of rich that you're here expressing concerns about First Amendment concerns about anything. A federal district court judge said this was the biggest affront to the First Amendment in the history of the United States of America, this censorship enterprise that the Biden administration engaged in that you were a big part of.
Good. And that being said, let's not forget that this was an actual thing. And then the Twitter files came out shortly after this, which really exposed this whole thing. This is a government scandal nobody's really been held accountable for. So I'm glad to see that they're actually having these hearings. Hopefully they start holding people accountable for this. It went through a broad range of things, not just the jibby jab, but they were trying to censor a lot of speech, and these tech companies were fully on board with it. They had direct connection with the FBI and National Intelligence Services, who were telling them what and when to censor things to create national narratives and things like this. It could have had even a chilling effect if the First Amendment wasn't there. It's the one thing that really protected the United States, and now we see this all kind of drawing back. But in countries like Canada, the UK, the EU, Australia, they've continued to go forward with these things. They do have organizations that provide the same function the Disinformation Board was supposed to provide in the United States. So, and there's actually legislation, laws, and they're putting in people in prison. As we talked about the other day, Tommy Robinson has been put into jail for the longest period of time any journalist has ever been put into jail for just reporting on a story that was actually true and that the government now has adopted as its own narratives. And this was the immigration and grape gangs, things of this nature. Okay, let's go into the last story of the day. And this was just a kind of a chart I seen, and I wanted to talk about it real quick. So this is buying a home in 1985 versus 2022. And in 1985, this was the era of the baby boomers. And this is where most people that own homes own them from that era. The average median income was $23,000 a year. The average price of a home was $83,000 a year. And at that time, that was a home, not an apartment. It was actually a plot of land. Now what we have is the average median income is $74,000 a year, and the median price of a home is almost $500,000. And very often that's an apartment. That's not even a plot of land or a home. And let's not forget your property taxes and things like this have just shot through the roof. So in the modern context, even when you own a home, do you really own it? You're constantly having to pay this rent to the government for property taxes. Now, I will hand it to Governor DeSantis in Florida. He's trying to completely eradicate property taxes, which would be pretty amazing if he was able to do that. The reason he's doing that is actually to go after the DEI within the education system. The education system within the United States is actually funded by property taxes and things like this. So he's looking to refinance that type of structure. But it's absolutely insane. People today have virtually no dream of owning a home, and that was the core value of an American dream and having a family. When you're making $23,000 a year back in 1982 and a home only cost $83,000, you actually have the opportunity to buy a home, have it fully paid off within under a decade, and that really provides the opportunity to then get married, have your wife stay home, have a career from home, and really focus on raising kids if that's what they want to do. That's no longer an option at this rate. Even with both parents bringing in a 2-household income, it's almost impossible to own a home in the modern context.
And that's what's making also a lot of the population collapse kind of skyrocket as well and turn into the snowball effect where people don't want to have kids, but because they think they can't afford it, because they can't have a house, because they haven't reached all their goals and all their dreams. So it's also part of what the narrative is telling us, but the reality as well.
Yeah, and the Canadian housing market right now is at the peak of its bubble. It's ready to pop, and it really needs to. A 1-bedroom apartment in a city like Vancouver can cost on average up to $1 million, which is absolutely crazy. We're talking about shoe boxes here. That housing market needs to absolutely collapse. But the current government that's in effect right now says they do not want to bring house prices down. They want to build housing units, have the government own those housing units, and have you eat the bugs and live in a shoe box. Okay, that's it for today. I'm sorry if I spoke kind of fast. I only had 20 to 30 minutes before I had to have on hard out. I got an appointment I have to be at. We'll see you right back here at 9:15 tonight for Nat and the Guy Live. And we should have no audio issues tonight, hopefully.
Hopefully.